It always begins the same way: soft piano, slow rain, and a title like a whisper from a memory you forgot you still carried. A girl in the cold. A boy with no shoes. A soldier standing at a grave he can't bring himself to leave. You're tired. It's late. You click play. You tell yourself it's nothing. Just background noise. But then a sentence lands with too much weight. A voice too familiar, too calm. It's not just telling a story, it's reaching into something. You feel it. Not in your head, but in your chest. A memory stirs. Something half buried, almost forgotten. You weren't expecting to cry, but you are. And it's not for the characters. It's for something the story reminded you of. Something you haven't spoken about in years. Something you thought no one else remembered. The video ends in silence, not closure. A lingering ache. And without thinking, you let the next one load. This time it's a little longer. The music hits sooner. The child speaks slower. The soldier says nothing. And somehow, it's the same story. A different girl. A new name. But the feeling, the beat, is identical. Again, someone disappears. Again, someone returns too late. Again, a secret is whispered in the dark. You don't notice you've watched 3 in a row. Then 5. Then 7. But the stories begin to blur, like déjà vu you can't shake. You realize the names aren't verifiable. The towns don't exist. Glenville. Stone Ridge. Eastwater. They sound real but don't show up on any map. The dates are never stated. The setting's always vague. A hospital. A funeral. A roadside diner. Familiar, but nowhere. Real but untraceable. You try to find the creators. No faces. No team. No studio. Just a channel description that says, where stories reflect life's most profound moments. It says real stories, but there's no proof. The upload rate alone is suspicious. Hundreds of long-form videos, up to 70 minutes each, posted weekly with full narration and scripting. No channel that size runs without a crew. And yet, this one runs without a single human face. Voice analysis reveals the truth. Nearly every episode is narrated by the same voice, artificially modulated to seem different. Higher pitch here. Softer tone there. But when you isolate the audio and run it through comparison software, the fingerprint matches. One voice. One source. A synthetic narrator mimicking empathy, performing grief. Reddit threads begin to surface, quiet at first. Viewers saying they've seen the same story elsewhere, with different names. Other channels, Sweet Moments, Heartlight, True Tears, using the same scripts. Some are monetized. Some aren't. Some vanish after a week. But the pattern never changes. Same piano. Same trauma. Same loop. People ask if it's AI. If it's being generated. But no one really investigates. Because it feels too personal to question. Like accusing your own diary of lying. You scroll through the comments. They're all crying. They say things like, I needed this, why am I sobbing at 3 a.m.? And, I wish someone had saved me like this. And that's when the dread creeps in, not from the story, but from the silence behind it. Because if this channel isn't telling these stories to help us, then why is it telling them at all? The pain feels too precise. The structure too deliberate. And the more you watch, the more you feel like it's not just delivering sadness, it's training you in it. Teaching you how to ache. Teaching you how to freeze when things go wrong. Not to act. Not to resist. Just to feel helpless. Just to remember. Over and over. Until the story ends. Until the music fades. Until the next one loads. It's just fiction, that's what you tell yourself. You're not paranoid. You're just tired. Everyone relates to these stories, right? But then something slips. A detail too sharp. A phrase too private. A sentence that feels like it came from your memory. A boy whispers, "Don't let him in tonight," and your chest tightens. Because someone you once knew said those exact words before everything in your house changed. You scroll back. Rewind. Listen again. Same words. Same tone. Same cold breath in your ear. Later, a character mentions a town called Lakeville. You've never been there. You're sure it's not real. But you remember it. From a dream. From a nightmare. From somewhere. The stories don't just resonate. They recognize. They watch you watching them. Digging deeper doesn't help. It only makes things worse. Users on Reddit begin posting screenshots, side-by-side comparisons of story narration and deleted posts from /r/nasleep and /r/unresolved mysteries. Word-for-word matches. Phrases stolen from stories that were never meant to be entertainment. Trauma survivors say their old accounts, now deleted or scrubbed, contain fragments of dialogue, names, even timestamps, all now repackaged into content that gets millions of views with no credit, no context, no consent. The towns mentioned across episodes, Glenville, Eastwater, Stone Ridge, are absent from maps, unlisted in census archives. They don't exist. Yet they keep appearing over and over, like fixed locations in a dream shared across thousands of minds. Archive.org gives away what the channel tried to erase. Early uploads had real dates. Real headlines. One referenced a 2016 disappearance in Ohio. Another used the actual last text of a missing child from 2004. But those versions were quietly replaced, overwritten with fictional names, soft narration, emotional piano. Now, only fragments of the originals remain, just enough to prove they were real. Just enough to suggest something behind this channel was pulling from truth. Whether from public records, or something more invasive. One cybersecurity analyst posted his findings in a now-deleted thread. Early uploads from the channel contained metadata pinging back to Eastern European data centers. These centers had previously been flagged in reports tied to psychological ops, the kind built not to inform, but to condition. A few clips even triggered warnings in automatic content analysis systems used for propaganda detection. It wasn't the content itself. It was the structure. The pacing, the emotional descent, the voice. And suddenly, the idea that these are just stories starts to rot. Because stories aren't supposed to know your secrets. Stories aren't supposed to follow your dreams. Stories aren't supposed to echo the last thing your brother said before the ambulance came. So what are they? And why do they feel like they're not just talking to you, but talking through you? You tell yourself it's the last one, just one more story, one more quiet tragedy to fall asleep to. But as the next autoplay fades in, something inside you goes still. You don't reach for your phone. You don't look at the clock. You just listen. Another child, lost in the rain. Another father, weeping behind glass. Another mother, whispering apologies to a grave. It should feel repetitive by now. It should blur. But somehow, each one feels sharper. Like it's speaking closer. Not just to you, but from you. The characters change, but the emotional rhythm never does. The pacing is hypnotic. The tone is tender. The sorrow is just enough to open you up, but never enough to let you close again. And the more you watch, the more you start to feel like you're not escaping anything. You're rehearsing for it. What begins as comfort turns into a kind of ritual, an emotional loop you didn't choose, but can't exit. Each story ends not with resolution, but with silence. A void. An unfinished thought that lingers like a held breath. And so you keep going. Another story. Another hour. The guilt begins to stick. You cry for a girl you never met. You mourn a father who never came back. You feel responsible, without knowing why. And in the dark, that guilt becomes yours. Not inherited. Not imagined. Behind the scenes, the numbers tell a colder story. The Touching Moments Stories channel is boosted most aggressively between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. local time, a window associated by clinicians with heightened emotional vulnerability and lowered psychological resistance. This isn't an accident. It's a precision strike. If your watch history contains PTSD tags, abuse recovery clips, grief content, or quiet keyword signals like alone, late night, or can't sleep, the algorithm ensures you see it. Even if you never asked for it. Even if you've never seen it before. It's like the channel finds you. At your weakest. At your most open. And once it does, it doesn't let go. The structure of the content mirrors classic trauma bonding cycles. Soft music, tragic story, unresolvable pain. Then silence. And again. And again. There is no emotional release. No healing. Just reopening the same wound with different names, different faces, different losses. The voice that guides you through it all feels familiar, soothing, almost maternal. But analysis reveals it's artificial. AI generated. Not just in tone but in pattern. Experts have broken down the waveform modulation and discovered deliberate design. The narration mimics parasocial intimacy. It builds trust, warmth, attachment, even though there's nothing behind it. No human. Just a machine designed to feel like someone who cares. And still you trust it. Because it's 3 a.m. and you're tired. Because it's easier to cry with a stranger's voice than your own. Because it knows how to hold space for your sadness, even if it never lifts it. Look at the comment sections. Scroll fast, you'll miss it. Hundreds of people breaking open beneath the stories. I'm sobbing. This broke me. Why does this feel so personal? I feel like this story was about me. You'll notice something strange, no responses. Not from the creator. Not from other viewers. It's like everyone's crying alone, side by side, in silence. And the channel says nothing. It doesn't acknowledge. It doesn't reach back. It just keeps playing. Feeding. Watching. You try to step away, but there's no real end. Even the uplifting episodes are lined with dread. A millionaire rescues a child, but only after something irreversible. A mother is saved, but too late to forget the pain. Even when good things happen, they are drowned in grief. The emotional architecture is perfectly built to keep you unbalanced. Never devastated enough to leave, never resolved enough to rest. Just caught. Just waiting. Just watching. It becomes harder to tell which feelings are yours. Harder to remember if that dream you had last week was real, or if it was part of one of the videos. Because the stories begin to bleed. The voices start echoing in the empty spaces of your day. The words creep back into your thoughts. Not like memories. Like programming. And that's when you realize, this isn't content made to entertain. It's not even content made to manipulate. It's conditioning. You are not a viewer. You are a participant in something that never truly ends. An experiment in emotional dependency, grief loop induction, and untraceable guilt. One video at a time. You're not even sure when it starts. Maybe the 6th or 7th story in. Maybe later. Maybe earlier. A voice says something and it lands wrong. Right. It's not part of the plot. It's not part of any plot. Just a line, quiet, fleeting, that feels like it was whispered through the screen directly into the hollow behind your ribs. You rewind. You listen again. But it's gone. Or it was never there. The character keeps talking, but your attention is somewhere else now. On the piano in the background. The way it shifts. The way it pauses between certain words. There's something beneath it. Something you can't hear, but your body reacts to anyway. Like a memory you never made. Like a command you were never taught to obey, but still do. Others have noticed it too. Quiet corners of the internet. Tech forums. Surveillance hobbyists. Audio engineers. One post shows a spectrogram of a touching moment stories episode. Not the story itself, but the waveform of the sound bed under it. And there it is. Anomalies. Low-frequency pulses embedded beneath the music, beneath the narration. Inaudible but consistent. Identical spacing. Identical rhythm. The kind of patterns once found in Cold War number stations, shortwave broadcasts used not to inform, but to signal. Spectral fingerprints too structured to be ambient noise. Too methodical to be accidental. These aren't glitches. They're messages. And someone, or something, keeps sending them. Then there are the subtitles. Most people don't even use them. But in early videos, when they were still clumsy, still human-made, there were strings of broken text. ASCII gibberish at first glance. But viewers began decoding them. Lake 12. Stay cold. Wake the father. Phrases that mean nothing until you start to see them appear again. In comments. In story dialogue. Etched into the background of thumbnails if you zoom in too far. Repeating. Looping. Haunting. Like chapter headings in a book you're not supposed to read, but already are. One user, long gone now, archived a deleted video. It wasn't like the others. The voiceover cuts out halfway through. The screen goes black. Then white text appears. You remember what happened, don't you? Then, don't let them tell you it wasn't your fault. The text flashes. Flickers. And then one final line. User A_***. The name redacted now, but known then. The uploader swore the video addressed him by name. That no one else saw it. That it was meant only for him. And he hasn't posted since. A now vanished Twitter thread from @cybersleeper_88 made a final connection. The phrasing used in Touching Moments Stories episodes, especially those centered on guilt and parental absence, mimics the exact sentence structure used in DARPA's experimental grief desensitization trials from 2012. Words timed to evoke memory, followed by auditory neutralization, followed by repetition. The loop. Grief, guilt, numbness. Grief, guilt, numbness. Not by accident. By design. And then there's the closing phrase. You start to notice it after a while. I didn't look away. Always whispered. Always final. And after it, the same musical cue. A subtle shift in key. A door sound. Not a slam, a seal. Like something being locked. You go back and check. It's the same across every episode that ends that way. A note you didn't realize was playing, until you started hearing it everywhere. Even after the videos stop. Even in your dreams. It's not just sadness anymore. It's not just empathy. There's a signal buried in the sorrow. And it's not trying to comfort you. It's trying to program you. At first, it felt innocent. Cathartic, even. You cried, real tears. You paused. You reflected. You remembered things you hadn't in years. That's what grief is supposed to do, right? But now, something's changed. The stories still make you cry, but it's different now. You feel heavier afterward. Emptier. And there's no relief. No closure. Just a sense that something inside you has been opened and left that way, on purpose. The endings don't feel like endings anymore. They feel like traps. A father kneels at a grave. A soldier holds a note. A child whispers something unbearable. The music fades. The voice softens. And instead of resolution, there's a silence that accuses you. A silence that suggests, this was your fault. And you believe it, before you even ask why. You're not alone. In quiet forums and mental health threads, a pattern has begun to form. Viewers report anxiety after binge sessions. Heart palpitations. Restlessness. Crying for no reason. One said they began remembering events from childhood that never happened. Another said they woke up whispering lines from the videos in their sleep. These aren't isolated cases. They're patterns. Symptoms. As if emotional dysregulation wasn't an unintended side effect, but a target outcome. FOIA release documents, heavily redacted, mention the term Touching Moments Media in connection to DARPA-adjacent trauma conditioning research between 2017 and 2019. The context is unclear. The redactions are severe. But the surrounding language is disturbing. Empathic reinforcement triggers, looped memory imprinting, emotional paralysis induction. These aren't the words of storytellers. These are the words of architects, engineers, programmers of psychological response. And they were studying how pain could be planted. Even within the stories themselves, the repetition becomes suspicious. The characters change names, ages, genders, but their roles never change. The silent father, the grieving soldier, the child clutching a note. These archetypes appear in over 60% of the channel's episodes. Sometimes they're swapped. Sometimes, slightly aged up or down. But their function remains. They exist not to evolve, but to trigger. To guide you back to the same emotional checkpoint. Over and over and over. Despite its subject matter, abuse, death, abandonment, suicide, the channel has never once linked to support resources. No hotline. No community page. No survivor outreach. Just autoplay chains. Monetized playlists. Loops designed to keep you there. Alone. Crying. Scrolling. The same voice, the same music, the same ache. Until your sadness isn't even about the story anymore. It's about you. It's inside you. And that's when the programming is complete. So ask yourself this: if a piece of content evokes tears, but never gives healing, if it opens wounds but never shows how to close them, if it leaves you more broken than before, is it still a story? Or is it a weapon shaped like one? And if you still want to watch, even now, then maybe the most dangerous thing about touching moment stories is this: it doesn't make you feel something. It makes you need to.